Hello, my name is Dan Vlamis. I'm with Vlamis Software Solutions. We'll be talking today about new features in data visualization version 4 for desktop, and we'll start in just about a minute or so. I just wanted to give people a chance to get used to dialing in for those people that are like me, maybe a minute or two late to webinar. So we'll go through some stuff at the very beginning in just a moment. I'm joined today, thrilled to be joined by Philippe Lyons of Oracle Analytics Product Management, and we'll be able to answer some of your questions that you have in the chat window. I'll go through that as part of the webcast as well, so you can ask your specific questions. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the meat of the matter. Little bit of background so you know who we are. We're Vlamis Software Solutions. We were founded over 25 years ago, thrilled to be celebrating our 25th anniversary. We've developed all sorts of BI and analytics systems and are leaders in this Oracle space of business intelligence and analytics. We have multiple ACEs on board. We're also authors of the book on data visualization for Oracle Business Intelligence and our Oracle University partners and Oracle Gold partners. This is in a series of webcasts that we've been giving on each release of OBIEE, BI Cloud Services, Data Visualization Desktop, and now Oracle Analytics Cloud. You can see the full list at vlamis.com/OBI webinars. You'll find it off of our webpage under presentations. And you can see we have a webinar on DVD 4 that you're listening to today. All the major features we'll go through, and then we'll have one on Oracle Analytics Cloud that does not have a release date yet officially, but we plan right now to have a webcast subject to change. But we have that for December 12th of 2017, and you can sign up for that webinar right now. We have some people already signed up for that. We'll make sure that you know about that webinar and go through the Oracle Analytics Cloud special features. It'll also recap some of what we're talking about today, because a lot of this will be new to the Oracle Analytics Cloud environment. So join us for those. We use these webcasts also. I just use them personally to go back and figure out when was that new feature in what version, as we work with clients on implementations and they're on older versions of the BI platform. I go back and use this as a resource of when things were introduced. If you want to ask questions, there should be a questions panel that you can ask questions, and we have a team of people on board to answer those questions, or you can put them in the chat interface and send those to people, and we'll try and get to you as we can. And if we can't get to them, we can follow up afterwards and go through stuff. So in terms of the overview of features that we have here, this is just a list of the things that are new in data visualization for desktop and what's coming out on this. The ones with asterisks that you see are ones that I plan to show a live demo of, but knowing that some people have access to, we make the presentations freely available on our website, and we make the slides available. So the slides will go through a lot of those features. Sometimes you want a synopsis. We are recording the webcast today. If you want to share it with others, there'll be a link where you can replay that webcast and sign in and share it with others. We'll go through the ones with a live demo of the ones with asterisks, and it is live, so if something goes wrong, we'll pick up as we can. I'll go through these as we go through. So one of the things is there's a new home page. Oracle has looked at how they present their data visualization front end and said, hey, we need some place where people can go to a home page. It's consistent with their other applications on the cloud, and it's more of an end user intuitive. It's based on the Alta standards, and it's a refresh of the home page. It also adapts as you use this. You'll see there's a whole theme of machine learning and adapting to your use and to your role as a user. So there's a what project and your data sets you work with, all that type of stuff, and I'll show this in just a little bit when we get into the live demo. There's also some new visualization controls. I'll show you later on that the properties area where you had to click on this little hamburger menu, we call it, and select properties, now has a dedicated area in the properties pane down here in the lower left-hand corner of your controls. And that's where you see the various data elements, the separator moves, and that's where you make a lot of the changes and be able to change stuff on visualizations as well as various attributes in your project. So we'll go through that as you'll see. There's also the ability now to copy individual visualizations. If you've been watching the webcasts, what was new in DV3 was the ability to copy an entire canvas, which was so much of a help for those of us that are building these visualizations for customers and for users. The ability to copy them whole and then be able to delete them, rename them, all that type of stuff. Now we can copy individual visualizations as well. You can pin and unpin the filter pane on various canvases and control whether a given filter control applies to all of your canvases in the project or just a single canvas. And that's very helpful for being able to give finer control over how we filter those canvases and those visualizations. We'll show that as well. There's a new feature of data actions. It's kind of right now we only have two things. We can go to a canvas and we can go to a URL. Again, I'll demonstrate that live. There's a little bit of, we need a little more control to give us the full framework that we had in the answers and dashboards area, but it's really helpful now at least to be able to navigate amongst various canvases and starts to make it so that we can use this product data visualization not just as a data exploration engine but also to share with others. It's a first down payment on that, so you'll see that as well. We have a new column for time-based attributes such as ship date, and we'll show this specifically. The ability to be able to see all the different levels of granularity of that. A feature in DV3 that we showcased was the ability to create additional columns, and it knew what the time hierarchy was. Now those are just automatically available to you, and you don't have to go through the extra step of creating those. They're just available, and so you determine at runtime. You have a default granularity that you look at ship date by, but you can also override that default and look at it at any level, which is really handy for looking at data at different levels. It obviously is aggregating in that case on the fly, so depending on the size of your data set, it may take longer, but there's other solutions to that using data flows. There's also ability in the columns control to show as a percent of column, especially handy for looking at tabular data, so that you can look at a percent of the total or a percent of the row value, something like that. We also have a single number data type as opposed to the stuff that kind of tripped us up at times, having a difference between a double or an integer or different numeric data types. Now it's just simple, it's a number data type. We also have the ability, I'll show this as well, the ability to auto bin some metrics, so we can have now a measure going up and a measure going across, and we can bin. You'll notice sales is now grouped into various bins or groups that are automatically created as you drag that across. You can also control how many groups it assigns to that. It has a default. It seems to default to 15. But you can override that and change the number of groups that are in there. So that's handy to be able to look at kind of a histogram type of approach of when you're looking at one measure by another. We'll show that again as well. We have the ability to rename data sets and connections. This becomes important when you're actually creating these in a production type system and you want to change these things around as well. It's propagated as, those names are propagated as dependent objects. So we ran into issues where we renamed things and then things were no longer the names that they were before. That's improved. We have the ability now to have unrelated data sources in a project. So there's sometimes when you want to put stuff next to each other on a given canvas, for instance, and you don't want to join them together at all. You just want to be able to present them together. We now have that ability. It just automatically just works, which is handy. You see that in this data diagram, and you notice there's no joins between those, which is really handy for some of these types of projects. The narration area is an area that, frankly, we've seen Oracle kind of change around and change its mind on what's the best way to present that. And I think actually they've landed on a pretty good way of presenting this. We'll show this in the demo. The way you handle storytelling and narration has gone through a couple different iterations of what they call it, how it's presented, and now we have a cleaner interface where you can add things to a story. You have your canvases listed, you simply drag them down to the list of pages, and then you can control for each of the pages which of the visualizations on a different canvas are even shown, and we can control the pixel count of how big the pages are. I'll show that, and that makes it easier for us to really go into what I would call presentation mode and be able to show these to others in the organization. In data flows, received a lot of new capabilities in here. There are several new types of steps in data flows. I will not have time to show them all. Indeed, you'll see I take an approach of taking a shortcut and showing all these, having some of them already pre-made so I can show you what they look like very quickly. But what you're getting in data flows now is really, think of it more of an analyst control panel that allows an analyst to manipulate the data and do filtering, aggregate, merging multiple data sets, even down to creating Essbase cubes and some machine learning algorithms, all in this data flow area. And what you're doing there is actually manipulating the data to create another data set that is then ready for analysis. Indeed, it begs the question of whether this is the new way that people are going to expose data sets in a corporate IT type of environment and use this type of interface. It'll be interesting as Oracle continues to expand the capabilities of these data flows and give us, for instance, the ability to operate multiple data flows together in a sequence of data flows that we use. We also have the, as I mentioned, the new create Essbase cubes step that will kind of figure out a hierarchy for you and create a cube for you and aggregate the data. This is now getting it to where you can really use, start to create Essbase cubes from the OBIEE interface, from the data visualization interface. We also have a cumulative value step that will do something like a running total on this. It's described as a moving sum, and then you could restart for each, actually makes sense in my book to do this, restart for each of the years. So I have an aggregate, and then at each year I'm going to reset that. So I have, in effect, a year-to-date and create cumulative year-to-date values. We have, I'll spend some time on the new create group step that allows us to create groups on the fly and group things together. Mind you, this runs as part of a data flow, so you're manipulating the data, if you will, creating a new column, and I'll go through that in detail. As well as a new binning step, the ability to bin things, and we have a fair amount of control over this. It's pretty cool. To be able to look at a histogram of the data and bin our data into multiple types of bins. This becomes, it's good that Oracle is putting this in, because you'll find that you need to do this type of stuff when you're running machine learning algorithms, that where you want to bin, for instance, groups of customers into various bins and look at anomaly detection, categorization, segmentation, all that type of stuff on this type of data flow. On bins of things. So it's good to see the power that we have in that. There's also a forecast and sentiment analysis steps. These are new types of data flow steps you can look at as well to do forecasting and look at sentiment analysis. There's the ability to rename any of these data flows, just as you would expect, and then you execute a sequence of these data flows. You can bundle them into sequences that you run and chain those back and forth. As we expect, every release of data visualization, there are new data source types that come out. You can see the ones that came in Oracle Big Data Cloud and Oracle Data Warehouse Cloud. It's interesting. That was announced as Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. We'll see if that gets renamed. That'll be interesting to see. And new talent acquisition. I think every release we get new data sources, and so you can see there's a plethora of these available, as well as the generic ODBC and JDBC for all the things that are not on the list, for instance. It really opens up the platform for all sorts of data. In the area of the machine language area, there are several new things. I'll show just one of them, really. I have time for the explain attribute, the ability to explain an attribute. But there are many things in here, and this is kind of one of the big ticket items in the release. If we have enough interest in this, we'll create a webcast just on the machine learning capabilities, if people are interested in that, because we're pretty excited at Vlamis on this. We've been working with the machine learning capabilities and advanced analytics in the database for years and years. Exciting to see it as part of the business analytics platform and be able to do that. Some of those include the ability to train and apply some of the models out of the box, a numeric prediction script, multi-classification model, clustering models, all sorts of things in here that over time you'll find that are very useful. They do take, I will tell you, they do take a trained eye to look at this stuff as much as you're trying to make things, as Oracle's trying to make things simple to use. There are times when you got to think through what you're trying to achieve on this. It's exciting to see Oracle trying to make this as easy as possible on this. There's also the ability to upload your own custom scripts in here. For instance, in Python, add a script up there and run that in the DV engine and be able to do that as a part of it. So it's something we're pretty excited about, and be able to do that for our customers and as we explore some of the data. We can also model various scenarios, add scenarios to a model, and add those directly in the context of a canvas, and do that without having to put it in data flows on that. With that, I kind of wanted to talk through a lot of those real quickly, but the meat of this is really to demonstrate this stuff live. So let me fire up my data visualization desktop here, maximize this, and I'll show you what I have. This is the new home screen, and this is what appears when you just first start Data Visualization Desktop. You get this Get Started with Oracle Analytics Cloud. And by the way, for people, I think Oracle is working especially hard on this out-of-the-box experience in improving that. Oracle, frankly, is not known for the best out-of-the-box experience in all of their software, but this really helps out, where you can, for instance, click on a Get Started video that's kind of in your face when you first started the software, and go through a tutorial of how to use this. There's a lot in here to help people know how to navigate in this environment and such. So visualize data, you prepare the data, learn more. You'll find very quickly you want to get rid of this Get Started area and get that out of your way. As well, when you're looking at, there's a new Create menu in here where you can create new projects, data sets, connections, data flow sequences, and scripts. And we can also manipulate this home screen a little bit. If you click on this, set it up for the way you want to do it. For instance, I find that I want the projects up top here instead of the what's new. I've already manipulated that. You'll find what's new is first. And you can drag and drop these things if you drag them into what order you want them in. Also, this is how you get rid of that Getting Started banner. You can turn that off so that now, from now on, it does not appear, and save that away. So let me go in as you get started. One of the things that's front and center in the interface is this Oracle Ask interface. You'll find this especially applies to the mobile platform where people are using their mobile phones to get at stuff. So, but I can simply type in here what I'm interested in looking at. So, for instance, perhaps I'm interested today in shipping cost. And as I type, it starts to guess what I'm interested in. If I click one of those, it'll then show me a visualization of what that looks like, or I can then go modify. There's a whole demo on using Ask, so I won't go into it much more. But for hence, I want it by product container. There it's guessing, and I'll select product container, and now I have a visualization of my shipping cost by product container. If I want to then use that as a canvas, and this becomes then the default way of really starting to do stuff, instead of presenting a blank canvas, you ask the user, what are you interested in? And then it starts to figure out how you might want to look at this. It's an ambitious goal, but it's a good start on this. If I click on that add to project, it'll launch a project, and now instead of this being empty, I have a canvas already populated with data by product container. By the way, to get rid of this side panel, you simply click that hamburger menu and he goes away. So now in the properties pane down here, you know, we used to have to change things via this properties menu. That now is down here in this properties pane. You can see there's this visualization in the bottom, and I can expand this a little bit. I find I need to make this typically a little larger, and I can change the number format, for instance, the currencies, add that to that, turn on the data values on top of the bars, turn them off. All the manipulation that you would expect in terms of changing axes and such have moved down then to this properties pane. So get used to using that there. Under the data elements, this is what this area is called in here, is your data elements pane. You can expand, for instance, if I want to look at ship dates, I told you I'd tell you this is where all these are automatically here. This is not part of the model per se. Ship dates, because it's a time-based attribute, it automatically knows what to do with this, and I double-click month, and it adds that to my visualization. So now when I double-click month, and notice, by the way, down here, this properties pane automatically changes on this. It's looking at the data element property, but then I can also change that to be the visualization by clicking on the visualization, and now this changes. So now, for instance, if I want to be able to add, really I don't like the way that came up. That's having containers going across. Makes more sense to me to put month going across, so I simply drag and drop that guy, and now I've got time going across, and within that bars for each of my product containers. You can see that there. But really I want that as a line graph instead, so I'm going to change the type of visualization, and now this starts to make a little more sense on this. Now, one of the things that I tend to do, I capitalize on this ability to create multiple canvases. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. I consider that kind of a best practice. And I'm going to duplicate this canvas because now I've got something I want to hold on to. And I want to be able to make some additional changes. So I'm going to simply duplicate that. Now I've got two copies, Canvas 1 and Canvas 1 copy. And now I can make changes without it affecting this. I find that lots of times I change my mind on what I'm going to do. So now I'm going to take the, that's too many shipping containers, product containers to keep track of. So I'm going to drag the product container up to the filter bar up here and product containers, large box and small box. And it's going to filter down the data set to just those two product containers. Notice as I do that, it changes over here. On the property pane, I'm going to change this to add a trend line. So that's in this analytics area. And I can add an analytic for a trend line. It's also up here where you're used to having it. But get used to it being down here because I think that's where they're starting to put some of these things in here. So that adds a trend line. And one of the features, by the way, in DV3 that was new was these confidence intervals that I can go and change this to a 90% confidence interval, or in this case it's adding some visual noise. So I'm going to just turn off that confidence interval in there so I don't have that. And by the way, I'll share one other quick tip. I find that often in this data that is often seasonal, you want to know where the break is each year. And if you drag that year down to the detail, you'll find that it breaks, provides a natural break each year, and you can see where the new years are, and provides a visual metaphor for that. That can be kind of handy. As well, on these filters, you can turn off, I told you I'd show you whether you pin to each canvas. So now when that's blue, that means this applies to all the canvases. So that filter, if I come over to canvas 1 that I copied from, notice it applies the filter in front of you. Come back to canvas 1, turn this filter off to unpin this, and when I come back to canvas 1, these are independent, and it no longer is constrained to just product containers, large box and small box. As well, I can I told you I'd show the auto binning capability. So let's take that shipping cost, and I'm going to find shipping cost, and I'm going to select pick a visualization based on that. Take that, and I want to display it as a bar, and that's going to take shipping cost and bring that across, and I'm going to take number quantity ordered, and I'm going to drag that to the category axis. This is what's new, is the ability to drag that, and I'm going to look at the shipping cost on my y-axis, and then I'm looking at groups of quantity ordered, and it presents a histogram on that. Now, this changed down here as I added that. If I right-click quantity ordered in here, now notice this is going to change down here as I right-click and edit the groups on this. Notice that it changed, and it knows I wanted to look at shipping cost by quantity ordered, and I'm going to change that to be only 10 groups. So this is where you're going to make your changes. So now I have a histogram of 10 different groups, and it's interesting, I can see that the shipping cost is highest for those orders when they order 9 to 12 items. So this is where the visualizations really help in showing that. I can also even apply, by the way, this was true in DV3 at least, you can apply a sub-filter on here for individual visualizations. So you're not limited by just filters at the canvas level or when this is unpinned. When this is pinned, applying to the entire project. Take the product container and further filter this and just say I want to look at just large box. Now you can see in here that this product container is just small box, and up here is large box and small box. So you can you have a lot of control over this. We also have the undo feature. I don't want to make that, it's a little confusing, I guess, to have that like that. So I'll undo. We have undo just like we've always had. So now that I've done a lot with this, I have my 2 different canvases. I'm going to go ahead and save that away and call this DVD Thursday. You can see I've gone through a couple iterations of doing this, but Thursday 2, in case I want to get back to it. So that let me start with a project where I wanted to scratch, because that's one of the features in Data Visualization Desktop. But let me go ahead and open a project that I've already done before, so you can see what's kind of more of a finished product looks like, and go into this sample project dev v4. By the way, I tend to do this again as a best practice. I leave the Oracle projects alone. Sample project comes with the software with some visualization so you can see what they've done in doing stuff. But one of the things I do is I first save it and call it dev, so that I know I have a copy that I always have, and I leave the other one pristine so I can always look at it. So just a tip that I found helpful. So if I, for instance, have this profitability, this is a series of different canvases. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different canvases. On this profitability canvas, I found that there is a visualization here called product sales, and I want to move that to the overview canvas. So I'm going to right click this guy and specify copy visual, and now that puts that visualization in effect my clipboard. Now I don't want to modify this overview canvas because I want to leave it alone because I may want to get rid of it. Indeed, this is what I do for demo purposes. I duplicate stuff and I change the things that I duplicate to be able to more effectively demo the software, so that I have things back the way they were, and all I have to do is delete this canvas when I'm done. So now I have an overview dev canvas that I'm going to make all my changes in. And let's go ahead and add that. I had that on my clipboard. I'm going to paste that visual into here so that I now have that product sales visualization. It adds it as a column in here so that I have that visualization that I can work with. Now I have my sales by category, but what I'm really looking for is to have this by product. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that, and I'm going to put in product name in here. Let's maximize that guy so I work with just him. And I'm going to move, instead of this by product subcategory, I want to look at all the products. Look at this by the individual products. Now, that actually is too many products to be looking on the page at once. We need to, and the reason I did that is I wanted to showcase the binning capability. Indeed, you can see in the product names, in many cases, we have names in front of these. If we could just bin them together, here you see 6 different Xerox products that all appear, and indeed, those are just the ones that show. In between are tons of these. So how can we group these together? And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do kind of a cooking show thing and show you what this looks like after we're done. And so I'm going to do this by major manufacturer. I have a data set that I've done via a data flow. So let me go ahead and add that data set. Now something comes up because I've done this before, but I'm going to add this data set, and these are all the data sets I have available. Think of these as spreadsheets in here. So I have this grouped product data, and then I'm going to add that to my project, and that way I have access to this column called a major manufacturer. So down here I have my major manufacturers, and I add that as part of this data set called grouped product data. It automatically joins them. And I'm going to take that grouped product data and drag it and replace product name with that. And so now we've got 3M versus Avery, Belkin, Fellows, and all sorts of stuff. But notice we didn't go through and add Xerox because I wanted to show you how to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and save this guy away and show you how I built this to be able to specify those. So let's save this, and then I'm going to go into the data flow and show you how exactly we built that and extend that a little bit. I can click on data and data flows, and in the what's new DF, not really a great name for it, but that's what we used. So then within that, this is the example of a data flow. You can see all sorts of different data flow steps that we can add to this. And I've gone ahead and built this so you can see what it looks like after it in effect has already been built. We start with the sample order data, sample order lines data set, and then we're going to bin, filter, and group. It's this group step that I wanted to show you especially that we're going to go through. So I'm going to click on that group step. You can see there's all sorts of new data flow steps with joins, merging rows, aggregating. Here's the create Essbase cubes. Here's, by the way, the machine learning stuff that we'll get to in a little bit, hopefully, and lots of different data flow steps that we can do. So within, these are the groups that we've already created for Fellows, Sanford, 3M, and so forth, and you'll notice there is no Xerox. I purposely deleted it so I could show you how I add it. So I'm going to add this group. You click on the plus for a group here, and you specify Xerox, and I'm going to go and now add some of those products up here. So then I put in the search box Xerox, okay, and it's going to find all of the Xerox products, and then all I do is simply double click on those guys to add them to this capability. Or if you don't want, this guy's not tall enough, so let me go ahead and scroll that down so I have more space to work with. Now I can click Add All, and it just adds all of those. You can see I have 112 out of the 112 that met this search criteria added, and now we've got a Xerox that hasn't actually calculated the data yet. And you can remove individual ones. This capability, for those that have been in this using these products for a while, is very similar to the custom groups capability that is in the rest of OBIEE in the Answers product. We now have this in the DV area. The ability to create our own custom groups, kind of as many as you want to create in here, similar to in Oracle Sales Analyzer, a predecessor product, the custom aggregate capability to add these things together. So kind of excited to have this capability now in here. So at that now, after you do the groups on here, I've added this in, and you can see what it's done is it's added a new column called Major Manufacturers. See, that's what I named it up there. And I'm creating basically a virtual column that is added to my data set, and it has figured out which ones are Xerox. And because I had this include others, which I can, by the way, turn on and off, what do you want to do with the other? This is one of the classic problems when you do these custom groups type stuff. What do you do with the others? And it went ahead and figured out which ones are Xerox versus others, GBC, fellows, and so forth. So that's how you create these custom groups. Within that also, wanted to show the binning in here, the ability to have bins in here. So let me go ahead and show that. If you click on this bin step, which is actually what we're doing first, this is in order, and we can create a sales decile bin in this case. So in here, we've specified we want to do by 10. This could be just as easily 15 different bins. Click the plus and minus on here. I'll change back to 10 because decile makes sense. If I can have different methods, if I change this to manual, you can see how we can drag these things back and forth. It's actually a lot of control. And if I look at this by a list, you can see what bins we have, anything between where the sales is between 480 and 960, we're going to put that in bin 2 and so forth. I can change these numbers manually like this if I want to have fine control over it, or actually it's kind of handy to see this and drag these bins with the histogram that appears here, and I can specify, hey, I want to go from here to here, and then as these bins get larger, I can, as the amount of data gets lessened, I can make the bins wider, if you will, and then come back and fine-tune this, something like that. You also have the ability to have equal width bins. That's kind of one of the out-of-the-box things. You can see how they are 300 versus 600, 900, and so forth. Every 300 is what it's doing, because the sales go up to 3,000. We said 10 bins. So it's looking like that. Or I can have, as a matter of fact, equal height bins, and it will do the calculation and figure out what the binning is. Apparently there's a tenth of them that are between 10.87 and 31.51 and so forth for each of these bins. You can even control in the manual area, you can even control in here how you call the bins and that type of stuff. So it's actually a very nice system. You can change what the bin labels are and whether you want to name them for equal width bins by the low point or the high point, something like that as you go through that. Also notice on the side here, this is what it's doing. The names that you've given these, and it's populating this in its spreadsheet. Then in here also we have a filter step. This is relatively simple, but it becomes important when you're navigating significantly large data sets, and sometimes you want to just look at specific values. You can specify whether you want to filter this down to just, in this case, just corporate and small business. We also have the ability, as I mentioned, to create Essbase cube, and in the end, we want to save this data. Now, this is the magic that's happening. When we run this data flow, it's going to save this in a data set called grouped product data. That's what I named it. That could be set at data set storage, or interestingly enough, that can go to a table that you specify in a connection that you set up in your connections. So I could just as easily throw this to a table. We have a server called VM7, and I can specify that I want to save that data away in my Oracle database, or any other data sources that I have for write back can write those back to those data sources. And it's a good way of basically manipulating some data and then saving it back so that others have access to it. A data set storage is available to all of your Oracle BI users, all of your ones using the Oracle Analytics platform. So with that, let's go ahead and execute this data flow. Well, first I'll save it. I made some changes, so I'll save that and then execute that data flow. And while it's executing, it actually is manipulating all that data and populating those specific rows. That's something where if you had a huge data set, you should expect that would take a little longer to run. Now let's come back and see the result of that. If I come back to my projects, look at my sample dev v4, load that up, and come and look at the product sales on that, and bring in that data set, you would see the Xerox stuff appear in here when we reload that data set. We'll take the time to do that at this point. I do want to show the narration capabilities and be able to see how you can how that canvas has changed. So now if I have this story, here's the story that I have so far. The narration area now has the regular presentation. This is the page I'm working with. This is how you navigate those different pages back and forth and change those. But one of the things I can do is take this canvas. Let's see, I think we added a overview dev page. And so I'm going to take that overview dev page and drag, that overview dev canvas, and drag that to create a page based on overview dev. Now I've got this this page with product sales, and this is ready to work with. We also, within this area, I have the ability to change things such as the layout of this, the size. I can change this, for instance, to an iPad size. Perhaps I want to optimize this presentation to work on an iPad, and I can turn on and off various visualizations. And so you may have developed the canvas with specific visuals on here. We can turn those on and off and such, and make it so that that page does not include all those visualizations. So I can turn those on and off. So at this point, perhaps I won't with somebody else. I can click on the share button and I can send that to a file. Perhaps I want to create a PowerPoint of this specific page and send that out, or I can send it to an Acrobat PDF file. There will be in the future, I believe, the ability to share this not just as a file, but share this back to your OAC project and have that available to other people on the OAC platform. That's where we're expecting that to be there with OAC 4, and we're waiting for that release to come out so we can share in that. All right, so then we also can come in here and add notes. It's a little feature. Sometimes it feels like it should have be a little more visible, but I can say now includes extra. All right, and then I can highlight this, put this in yellow, and put it up at the top of the page, that type of thing. So, all right, so that's in terms of adding new notes to the feature. So, all right, let me also show one more thing back on here. Come back to the visualize area, and I want to show you the ability to use data actions. So we're looking at a specific customer segment in here. Come back to this panel, and I'm going to go back to the overview section and show you what you can do with this. So now if I click on this green section, I think everybody has probably seen this. As you click on this, you can see with the brushing feature, as I go over each of these in the other visualizations, it automatically links those. Really nice feature, and knowing where you are, it highlights office supplies in this table of data. But one of the things now is the ability to link to that to other areas. And down here in the data actions area, by the way, it also appears in the panel down in the lower left-hand corner. But now I can specify I want to navigate to details by office, and this will navigate whenever we click on a specific office. It will navigate to this page called Performance by Office, to that canvas. You can also control whether it passes all the values or specific values, and I'll show that in just a bit. But one of the other actions I wanted to show to you live was the ability to add a URL. So I'm going to put in here, I'm going to navigate to a URL, passing in content, and this is what we can use for creating applications that talk to other applications. So I'm going to put in there's http:// and just something simple. This could be very complex in here, but I know that searching would work in here, and that way I don't have to set stuff up. If I type an open brace in here, whoops, I got to put in search. I can specify a continent in here. Continent. And it will navigate to that specific type of area. So, oh, I got to put the URL in here. That's what I'm doing wrong. So I put my URL in here and specify search equals, I got to give it a name, Google continent. And type in http search $Q equals, and notice it picks out what I might want and guesses continent and fills that in for me. So now that's going to create a URL out of that and navigate anytime I click on a continent. And I want to anchor that to the continent in here. So now when I click on that, well, I'm not seeing the continent in here. Oh, it's in here. Okay, so then that's going to navigate to that continent every time I do it and click on OK. So now when I run this, first of all, I had a data action for a specific office supplies. When I click on office supplies, it's going to navigate to a new canvas. Run this, right click and specify navigate to details by office, and it looks at that, moves to the performance by office canvas. And then when I, for instance, right click on Europe and specify Google continent, that's the new action that I added. Now it Googles that and brings up this URL, which could navigate to another type of application entirely. All right. I also wanted to show, I promised I would show at least some of the machine learning capabilities. So let me go ahead and come out of that and show you those. So I'm in this project. If I now just go back to my home screen, I'm going to show you another capability, and that is if I have a just Windows Explorer, I'm going to take this, it says create a new data set by simply dragging your file anywhere on this page. All right, so I have this thing called attrition training. By the way, I cheated. I grabbed this from Oracle's sample list of projects and exported it out. So I have this attrition training.xlsx, just a simple Excel file. It looks like this with all of these in all these values in row 1 and then specific data values in each. It's a very simple spreadsheet, but what we have is data for people that have are still with our company or have left the company. If I then just click on visualize, it will say, hey, do you want to replace it? Obviously, I've done this before. So I have to say I'm going to replace it. It now visualizes that data and brings it up in a project. So now I've got that data with attrition training with all those same fields. It's already been developed. This is Oracle trying to make things easier to use on this, so you can just drag spreadsheets directly to your home screen and they're available. And there is a field here called attrition. So for instance, if I want to explain attrition, I simply right-click attrition, say explain attrition, and the software is doing some analysis right now on the entire set of data and coming up with some basic facts. Comes up first saying there's 1,470 rows, most common value of attrition is no, and the least common is yes. Then it's trying to figure out what other basic facts it can find about attrition, and comes up with a donut graph showing which ones are yes, which ones are no, and then various ideas about what you might be interested in. For each one of these graphs, if you want to then create a visualization, you simply click the check mark and say, I want to see that one, add that to my canvas. There's some key drivers of attrition. It turns out that first name and last name it thinks are some of the key drivers. Those are actually some spurious correlations. Whether a person leaves or not, it thinks is very much driven by the first name. That's because of the data set we have. Well, that may be true in the data, but that's not interest to me. So I want to look at it by job role or by overtime. And look at this. You can even see in here. It's kind of interesting. In the manufacturing job role, you can see at this level even the green is very short, meaning not many people have left that are in the manufacturing job role. So that becomes kind of important. I can look at some segments that explain attrition, look at combinations of various segments, and it even does anomaly detection where it tries to figure out, all right, this is what we would expect, a research scientist just picking this out, they would expect for 22 people to have left, but instead there's only 14. So the green line is what we would expect. The blue is what has actually left our company. Why is that? That's something of interest. So I found the ones that I'm interested in, and I click on Add Selected, and now it comes up with a canvas with those values pre-populated of the visualizations that I especially wanted to explore. It gives me a starting point for the type of analysis that I might want to do on this. So that's just in general being able to use some of this machine learning. Now I showed you in data flow, it was much more feature rich in the ability to do finer control over this stuff with some of Oracle's out-of-the-box type of algorithms that they have. And as I said, if you're interested in more of this, we can put a show just on the machine learning capabilities. But let's say I want to save this away now. I want to start talking to other people about this and call this something like attrition. And save this away. So now I've got this project that I can come back to at a later date. That's what I had prepared in terms of showing you especially some of the capabilities in DVD. Let me try and, there's a lot more. This is what I run into in every one of these releases. It's always tough to just give you a sampling of what we can do. But I want to come up and highlight a couple things. As you end up using this, I showed you in the Getting Started area, there's an analytics area. Take a look at these sample projects. Each one of these you can download and install into your data visualization desktop. Real quick, let me show you where that is. In here in the console area, that's what you're, and you can actually upload custom plugins here. That's, you download them and then click the upload to DVD. It's kind of a misnomer on the name of this when it says upload. That's how you load them in, and you drag these things that you grab from the Oracle Analytics library, and you can look at all these things on how you learn from them. Also, a quick plug for the Analytics and Data Summit. This is a conference. If you're into this type of stuff, this is the conference you want to come to. This is what we talk about, is analytics both on the middle tier platform, the Oracle Analytics area, as well as in the database. There's a strong emphasis on each of those, and we're joined by the spatial and graph people. I didn't even get to showing some maps. Usually in all my DB demos, I include a map because we think that's often for geographic data the best way to showcase it. Come to this conference. We have the early bird deadline is through December 1, and we also are taking papers still. We have some selected already, but submit your abstracts and you can speak at it March 20 through 22. Join us at Oracle headquarters. With that, I have some resources on here. You'll find this presentation is out very soon after the conclusion of the webcast. We'll put the PowerPoint deck out there. We'll also have the ability to replay. Here are some resources that you want. The new features, help on this. This is the big long URL. When you click on the help and look at books and look at what's new, that I went ahead and gave you the entire URL so you can look at this. A deep link, and that's where we learn a lot of this, as well as help with from Oracle Product Management on this. There's also some fantastic plugins and demos on here. If you go to this the Analytics Library and this YouTube channel, let me show this real quick. This is where we learn lots of this Oracle BI Tech demos, and they have an entire playlist on what's new in DV4. That's what this playlist is. So if I click on that, you can see this is some of the new features, and that's where I got a lot of this in going through what's new. So take a look at that video and play it, and you'll see some good stuff. This is where we get a lot of how I put together these things. So with that, let me see if there's any questions that we especially need to go through. I know often I don't have time to go through all the questions. We'll stay on live for this, but anything that for people that have been answering questions, helping me out on this as I present, anything we want to especially highlight. And Philippe, I'll call you out in case there's something that you especially want to do. Otherwise, we'll look at starting to conclude things. Okay, well, assuming that this is, you know, the questions Q&A area is what people have been using. It's hard for me to read through all the questions. We'll continue having this open for the next at least 15 minutes or so, but I want to respect those people that say, yep, I need to go, and very much appreciate. I do want to point out, if you want to see this for OAC 4, we expect the OAC 4, I can't promise it, I'm not Oracle, but that release is coming out soon from what I hear. We will do a similar webcast. I'm scheduled right now for December 12th. Go and sign up at OBIEE webinars on here, and you'll see the same stuff for what's new in OAC 4, and look forward to talking to you all then. If you want to hear more, contact us. We love to talk to people. Give me an email or follow us at Vlamis Software. Thank you very much, everybody.